In 2006, my sister-in-law Lorraine volunteered, silly girl that she is, to make a king-size quilt for our guest bedroom. We scurried to Hancock Fabrics and picked out all of the material we thought she would need to complete this project, and she went on home to Alabama to get started on it. After she left, I started cruising through some old quilt books and decided, you know what, I think I might actually give this hobby a try. Well, I haven't looked back since, and what you're about to see is my progress in self-learning the hobby of quilting. It's quite interesting. My first job is to introduce you to my quilting assistant. This would be Sonny. His number one job is to evaluate the usability of the quilt, whether or not it's completed, whether or not I'm trying to slide it under the needle. His other job is to assist me with winding bobbins, which he does a bang-up job of. You'll see him throughout this show, adding input as required. This first project is a basket weave quilt, and I pulled it out of a book I've had for, oh my goodness, probably 10 years. And I thought I was doing pretty good as far as cutting and piecing together, but it really is a beginner's quilt and was certainly not good enough to give to anybody else. But I will say this, that given enough quilting, you can make any bad quilt look presentable. I made all of the classic mistakes on this one, from choosing the incorrect color for the backing to choosing the incorrect color for the thread, and I learned a lot from it. I decided for my second quilt endeavor that I would try to do the basket weave again. I had learned so much the first time around. This time I chose a light backing, which helped a lot, and a light colored thread on the back. For the first time I used a clear thread on the front, and I think that really helped. I still didn't feel confident enough about my piecing, so I worked really hard on trying to match the squares as I went along, and I think I did a better job. I also increased the size because ultimately I wanted to try to put it on my twin bed. The other one I was using on the twin bed, but it really was just a little bit too small. So this one is quite a bit bigger. Again, I still had some matching problems, but there was a significant improvement over the first one. Okay, so now I'm going to do a quilt that I give away. And not only is it going to be given away, it's going to be done with diamonds instead of squares, so that your rows of squares actually go from one corner to the other of the afghan. I'm going to do applique. I'm going to stencil my quilting, and I'm going to include stippling. Okay, I'm ambitious and probably a little crazy to do this all in one quilt, but I had fun doing it, although I did rip out quite a bit, and my poor singer ended up being retired because I had beat the crap out of it. I ended up buying a new sewing machine that is designed to take the abuse that quilting does do to your normal sewing machine. I had a lot of fun with it, and it ended up going to Ron's mom, and she kept it on her bed. I was hoping she'd use it as a lap quilt, but it ended up being just a little too big for that. This quilt I originally intended to give to my sister. As I progressed, though, Ron and I decided that it was too southwestern, and we decided to hold on to it, so it resides in the living room. This particular pattern I got as a freebie from Hancock Fabrics in their quilting section on display. I enjoyed doing it, but it was my first lesson in that pattern makers do make mistakes, and I ended up having to recut a lot of squares because there was a misprint in the pattern instruction. It all worked out in the end because the squares I originally cut were too large. Thank goodness they weren't too small, or it would have been a total waste of fabric. Something different. A t-shirt quilt. My sister approached me about making a t-shirt quilt for my niece Tracy for graduation. She had played softball for basically 12 years and had saved a t-shirt from every team she had ever played for. She was a pitcher. And Robin really wanted for graduation to give her a t-shirt quilt commemorating her career as a softball player. So we decided to give it a try. I cruised the internet, just educating myself a little bit. Did this a little differently than you would normally do a quilt, in that I put the squares together and actually quilted them before assembling the quilt. As a result, we had to use some stripping in between, but I think it came out okay. And what was really nice was I was able to use different colors for the back, and you'll see it really adds some interest to the back of the quilt as well as the front. At the same time I was working on Tracys Quilt, I was also working on this one. It was basically my sanity quilt because the t-shirt quilt was frankly making me crazy. This particular quilt I absolutely loved, and there is no doubt I will do this pattern again. I love the colors, I love the way it went together, and it was the first quilt that I felt totally comfortable with the way everything came out from start to finish. My piecing, my quilting, the color arrangement, everything just seemed to come out really nice. And it was just the right size to work with as well. It didn't, bunch up under the sewing machine as I was working on it. This was given away as a Christmas present when I got all done. Well, we're finally to my current project, and one that has been going on for over a year. It truly is my spare time quilt project. I don't have anybody in mind for it, although it will, because it is such an intricate design and is so pretty, will end up being a gift for somebody because I really don't have any place in the house for it. This one I did a little differently as well. I started with the main center section and pieced it together. Then I quilted it. Then I added a border around that and quilted it. Then another round of squares, which is what you're currently seeing, and I'm in the process of quilting that. Towards the end of this project I still have one more round of border to go through before I am finished with it, and then I'll add that final border and I'll quilt it, and finally the project will be done. And who knows, stay tuned, it'll end up going to somebody.